everybody, welcome back. You are tuned into Breakfast Central, right here where we wake you up with all that you need to make sure your day is lit and informed. Remember, you can hit us up on all digital platforms. We are across social media, honey. And News Central TV is the handle to follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, we're on YouTube as well. But remember to check out our website. That's www.newscentral.africa. We're going to get into business as usual, where today is a different kind of conversation. We're looking at business ethics scandals right here on the African continent. So, you know, when you look at global corporate giants from Facebook to Nissan, Tesla, and Starbucks, one thing they certainly have in common is that they have been embroiled in just a little bit of controversy. Now, from corporate titans to newly formed entities, business ethics scandals have sprung up from time to time. So today we're going to take a look at some of those scandals right here on the continent. I'm excited to be joined by Rotus Oddiri, the editor of Business Insider SSA, who's here to dig into these issues. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'm excited because I know you're going to school me, so I'm ready for that.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
So we kick off the conversation in Nigeria, where earlier this year, MTN accused Globacom of refusing to pay up its interconnect fees and threatened to disconnect Glo subscribers. So that was eventually settled, and the Nigerian Communications Commission has now granted Airtel approval to partially disconnect Globacom from its network. The disconnection will take effect from Monday, October 28, if Glo fails to address an existing debt issue, and that's after 10 days. So still in Nigeria, Glory and Muyiwa have been trending hashtags since Sunday. So two Nigerian entrepreneurs, namely Muyiwa Folorunsho and Glory Osei, who I believe is originally Ghanaian, have been accused of fraud, business malpractice, and staff mistreatment by a former employee. Well, a number of employees have also come out on social media. So this has led to shared accounts by several employees with similar experiences. So the duo have since released statements to refute the claims. And finally, we're going to round up our conversation in South Africa, where Eskom, the country's power utility, wants Deloitte Consulting to pay back more than 207 million rand for two tenders and other work the audit firm secured improperly during 2016. So Eskom says it has information that shows off-the-record proposal briefings were given to Deloitte and that the company was granted contracts even though their pricing was way above their competitors. So court papers and affidavits are flying left, right, and center. They've been issued against Deloitte. So we're going to start the conversation by asking, how common, I mean, I know the answer to this, but how common are business malpractices in Africa in relation to the ones that actually make headlines?
Yeah, they're pretty common. If you think about how businesses operate, businesses have a number of obligations. They have multiple obligations, and these obligations have costs. They have obligations to shareholders. They have to make sure that their books are in order. They have to pay auditors to audit their books. They have to, for publicly traded companies, they have to make sure that they show their financial performance to shareholders, to the media, to the public. For private companies, not so much. They don't have to display it to the public, but they still have obligations. So those come at a cost. And if the company wants to hide performance that is not impressive, or it cannot pay its auditors, they will cut corners. And that's where ethics issues come up. Businesses also have obligations to employees. They have to pay salaries. They have to pay pensions. They have to pay healthcare. And those also come at a cost. And in certain cases in Africa, we've seen situations where if they can't pay them up, they either owe them for a period of time or they don't meet these obligations. And then thirdly, businesses also have obligations to regulators. You've got regulators in different industries that make sure that the businesses are following the rules, and some of these regulations come at a cost as well. So they might circumvent them as well. So in each of these cases where the reality of trying to meet up with these obligations doesn't match what's on ground for the company, there might be issues of circumventing these things. And also, personality clashes between superiors and subordinates. I guess we'll get to Muyiwa and the Glory in a second, because that's part of what their issue is. But when you look at these collectively, it is something that unfortunately happens in our climate.
Okay, so let's start kind of from the higher end of this conversation, which is where you look at the telcos who have become regulars, in the wrong, shall I say, with the wrong type of headlines. But it doesn't seem to dent their operations. It doesn't dent. They're always able to kind of skim over this.
Right.
Now, is this kind of the preferential treatment that goes with being such a high revenue generator for a nation? Because you're looking at employment, you're looking at so many things. So you almost feel like the regulators are slightly lenient when telcos are involved.
Yeah, well, MTN wouldn't say so.
well, they still haven't paid. So.
Right. So the thing is. There's a good argument for that. Yeah. Although, if you ask the telcos, they will tell you that with the amount of fees that they pay, with the amount of rules they have to follow, the MTN example with the SIM card registration and then the repatriation of funds overseas and then the taxes with Nigeria and the FIRS and so on. So they'll tell you that they're highly regulated and things are a bit difficult for them. But to your point, they are very, very essential. The Central Bank of Nigeria, for example, has a financial inclusion target of 80% by 2020. They're not going to meet that target, so they moved it to 2024. The telcos are very essential in getting financial inclusion, as in mending, banking and financial services with their networks. Yeah. So I would argue a bit that they have come under the cosh a little bit, but to your point, one can argue that maybe regulators have been slightly easy on them. But again, with the evidence that we've seen, Nigeria is Africa, difficult place to do business. And so I will have to say it's not been easy for them. And
what are the implications of the 28th of October? What exactly is the consumer set to expect on that day?
Okay, so if you are a Glo subscriber, Glo has about 47 million subscribers. I think they're in third place as far as market share is concerned, behind MTN and Airtel. And you are not going to be able to place a call to an Airtel subscriber. So the way the interconnection charges work is that if I place a call to you, my telco is going to pay a charge to me originating the call that terminates on your network. So they will pay to you. And so if you're a supplier and we're in business together, I can't call you, I can't communicate with you, but I can receive calls. I should point that out. They will be able to receive calls, but they won't be able to make calls to Airtel subscribers because of this amount of money that's being owed for the interconnection.
Do you foresee us getting to that stage? Are we going to get there?
It happened
still a few days.
Still a few days. They gave them 10 days from the 18th of October to the 28th. We believe they're in negotiations. Now, the impact would be heavy for people, business calls, personal calls. So I believe they're going to try to work together to make sure that they don't get there. So I hope they don't.
Okay, well, I think we should anything is possible. Anything is possible. But let's quickly move on to it's sort of this is a little bit more of a salacious, juicy story regarding Muyua and Glory. And earlier you alluded to the fact that this seems to be more of a personality clash than a business malpractice case. Well,
so to clarify, there is an issue of business malpractice because of the business models of the businesses that they're involved in. They're juggling a lot of items up there.
Several businesses, right?
Agriculture, real estate. There's a company that they're giving out interest-free and collateral-free loans to women-owned businesses. So some of the allegations that came out was that for example, the returns that they were promising for their agriculture business were astronomically high. They were saying that you just bring some, and it's been a bit of a rave now, where the number of agriculture startups coming up and saying, bring some money, in about 10 or 11 months we'll give you a return.
These kind of tech-backed.
And so if you look at the agricultural sector, the problems with storage of our foodstuff, the problem with the roads, getting them to the markets, the harvest and the returns.
It's barely a seamless production line.
Right. So for you to promise that you're going to give 10 or 15, 11% return is a little dodgy. So that's one of the allegations that was there. But also firing, this is what was alleged. Firing staff, not having compassion for staff. Those are the personalities. Being too heavy-handed. Those are the part of the allegations. And they had to come up with a press statement and say kind of admitted in the press statement, okay, look, to ex-employees that we've wronged, I'm sorry, maybe we could have done better. So there's those issues of malpractice are definitely there.
But here's my thing with this. When you read the story, you listen to the story, it's not a new story, unfortunately. This is something that happens regularly.
Yes.
Let's now just kind of focus on the Nigerian business environment. This is something that's almost an acceptable norm. And the employees are carrying the burden of it more often than not. However, what is the future of employee empowerment, employees' rights? Because you could never try something like this in a South African environment.
Very true.
So what is it that's peculiar about Nigeria that enables employers to be able to take advantage of
playing God? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So Nigeria has, I was listening to your other segments prior where your guests were talking about having over, I believe, 60 million or so SMEs. A lot of them majority of them are sole proprietorships, right? And so it's, one man, one woman businesses. And there is a lack of corporate governance. So there has to be some oversight over the CEO or the owner of the business to make sure that they are treating employees fairly, paying their wages, paying their pensions. And so with a lot of these businesses, there's no corporate governance inside, there's no oversight, so they play God. Another thing is the economic situation that Nigeria finds itself in. There's high levels of unemployment. Unemployment is about 20% or so. There are a lot of Nigerians that are out of work. It is an employer's market. So this is a market where employers can pick and choose who they can hire. There are lots of people looking for jobs. And so as an employee, you're almost at a disadvantage to where if you're being mistreated, you can't really say much because you don't want to lose your job and then go face your bills and face unemployment. So, but to answer your question, the future has to be with proper instilling of corporate governance. Regulators have to come in, labor laws. We have labor laws, but the issue with Nigeria is that they're not enforced. That's the issue. But if corporate governance can be instilled where they can make sole proprietorships and so on, get oversight for CEOs and owners of businesses, we'll probably see a better future where employees are treated better. For example, really quickly, I'm not sure if it was Muiwa or Glory, but someone said that there was a human resources person that was hired, and she hired someone, and within 2 or 3 days, the person was fired because they didn't get clearance from the MD. Human resources is supposed to be empowered to hire and fire, right? So again, that's the whole playing God thing, and a corporate governance structure should be able to step in and say, you can't do that. So that's what we need.
And I think this is exacerbated by the fact that I know specifically Glory is a bigger personality on social media and so forth, and she is quite an advocate. But let's look at advocacy and unions and these bodies that are supposed to protect us and be able to move together to make an impact. Are we saying that in an environment where unemployment is high, unions are ineffective?
See, sadly, with the Nigerian space, the unions only pop up when the government says they won't raise the minimum wage or they want to remove fuel subsidies. They only pop up in those situations. And while some Nigerians would appreciate that, others would say, look, you have to also focus. So that's a macro level thing that affects the entire country. You have to also focus on the micro level and step in when it comes to disputes between employer and employee. So it's hard for me to say they're ineffective. I mean, they do pop up every now and then, but they're just not focusing on the minute issues that happen between employee and employees they should be taken care of. So there's work for them to be done.
Okay, so we're not really seeing that dominant voice when it comes to especially private sector affairs.
We're not.
Okay, very quickly, we do need to round up. Let's just take a look at South Africa in the dark. And it seems like when there's load shedding is when Eskom makes more, of course, naturally, because it now touches the consumer. Eskom, Deloitte, this is an ongoing Eskom investigation is one of those exhausting battles. Do you think that there's going to be any actual action taken this time? Are we going to see any resolutions, or is this just another excuse to unbundle Eskom, for privatization? Is that what we're just, leaning towards now?
Yeah, actually yes, because from a practical perspective, it has to be broken up into smaller bits in order for them to be run more effectively. Eskom is a state-controlled entity, and as you've seen around the world, in Brazil, in Nigeria, state-controlled entities aren't very efficient. After apartheid ended, 94 or so, at that time they were only giving power to whites, then they had to expand and give power to more people, to blacks and so on. There was also the housing issue where the South African government, I think between 1994 and 2014, they built about 2.9 million homes. So the demand increased, and Eskom, unfortunately, being a state enterprise, didn't foresee the amount of diversification in providing power to South Africans. And so now that's why the load shedding is happening. They're having to reduce. So unfortunately, or fortunately, from a private sector perspective, to instill efficiency, it looks like it will have to be broken down into bits, given to private hands so that it can be run more effectively. They can look at other coal is the main source of power that ESCOM uses to provide. Coal prices have increased from the apartheid era to now, so they're going to have to diversify power sources, and so it looks like private hands are the best way to ensure that that happens.
And there's no better way to do that than with scandal, right?
Exactly. That's the kick in the behind that they need.
All right. Well, this is where we have to round up. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Definitely. I knew you were going to school me. You sure did. You sure did. I hope you schooled our viewers too.
Thank you.
All right then. That is business as usual. Looking at some business ethics scandals taking place on the continent. Hopefully, some of these, well, actually not some, all of them will be resolved speedily in the not too distant future. It's time for us to take a very quick break, but plenty more coming to you after this.